It's interesting because I find when I'm doing training with someone, I'll be explaining step by step how they're going to teach the dog, say, to sit. And of course, they're shaking their head going, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. And then when they actually go to do it, they do it completely wrong. And it really is about observing. And, I've always been told the sincerest form of flattery is just copying. That's really the best way to learn something, and especially with dog training. You just really have to be very visual at that point. Humans, I think, are very verbal, and that does not really work with dogs. You have to be very visual in teaching someone how to train a dog, and you have to be very visual with your dog. Dogs really understand, they get information based upon what you do. So for instance, if a dog does something, maybe it's something wrong, and then you respond in a certain way, they're getting the information from your response. So for instance, if a dog is jumping, because that's probably one of the biggest complaints that I get, and I get many calls about that. Most people, and again, because humans are so verbal, we stay in the moment and we keep talking to our dog, and we might be saying off or down or, pushing the dog, and we just keep talking. Dogs think that is attention. To them, whether it's negative attention or positive attention, in a lot of ways, they really don't care as long as you stay there with them. And the bottom line is that's just going to reinforce that negative behavior that you're trying to get rid of. So if you just make it simple for a dog and either ignore the bad behavior by turning away and walking away, or giving a very firm command, one phrase, maybe it's off, and then breaking eye contact, for instance. Oftentimes over time, it's not, there's no magic cures for any of these things. That does more to help the dog than if you just keep repeating over and over the word off, down. I think it takes time, unfortunately, because humans are so ingrained in our own habits that many times I'll find that I'll explain something and someone will say, oh, yes, I understand. But then changing that behavior is the harder part for me. So in a lot of ways, dog training is as much about training the owner as it is about training the dog. It's the type of thing where I will demonstrate a command, and the dog, I'll walk in and show the dog, and the dog immediately responds. And then I'll of course have shown the owner, and no matter what the owner tells me, they then go and do it differently. And again, it's these preset things that people have learned over time that they just have a hard time actually changing despite what they're saying. And it's frustrating, but you know what? I'm very much a people person as much as I am a dog person. Much of my career before being a dog trainer had to do with training people. So I think that combination of my personality and the skills that I've learned over time has been very helpful, because I find that I often have to be more patient with the human than with the dog. And that can become a difficult situation, because if I get there and say I've been there maybe a week before or 2 weeks before, and I can see that the dog has not mastered a command that we've taught it, I almost always know that it's because the owner hasn't spent the time in practicing it. So it's crucial. I can only go so far. My job as a dog trainer is to give the family or the owner the tools necessary to help change their dog's behavior for the better. But if they don't practice it, then there's nothing really that I can do. I think the most important thing that I can tell people is that put yourself in your dog's paws. That's kind of my philosophy. And, not that I think that we should humanize things too much when we're dealing with our dog, because that can get us into trouble. But you do want to look at this situation and say, would I like such and such a thing if somebody was doing that to me? Because I feel that a lot of the training methods that are out there, somewhat the older methods that have developed, from long ago, are just not appropriate to use with dogs. And many of the things that we do to our dogs bring out negative behavior, and we're unwilling to really look at ourselves to see, how am I contributing to my dog's behavior? So that's probably, in a nutshell, the most important thing, is that you should Put yourself in your dog's paws and then turn around and look at yourself, because so much of what a dog is doing has to do with the environment that it's exposed to. And if dogs are here to teach us one thing, and I think this is very true, is to really examine our own behavior.